For this particular video, we're going to take a look at where we can use our between statement and then also where we can go ahead and use multiple conditions with our logical operators. If I start with my base table, and in this case we're going to be using our products table, it's set up with some nice things that we can use for our logical operators. I'm going to look at it before we start. When I run this, I can see that I have a good number of things. Now, if I am interested to see everything where I have units in stock, maybe greater than 20 and less than maybe 40 units, I can do something using a between statement. I can say where units in stock between. Now, when I do a between statement, it's going to be 20 inclusive, meaning 20, 21, 22, 23, and 40. And then, so this would be 39, 40. So it's going to include the beginning number, which is 20, and the ending number, which is 40. So if I execute this query, I can see that I'm returning units in stock that are in that range. Now, if I decide that I want to instead maybe not use a between statement, we typically use between statements with ranges of numbers. We also use them with dates. We don't necessarily have great examples for dates, but we could use them with dates as well to check to see whether something is between two particular dates. Now, in our case, maybe we have something where we want to check whether units in stock is greater than or equal to 20 and less than or equal to 40. We can also do it using a logical expression. So units in stock greater than or equal to 20. Then we would come down to the next line and say units in stock less than or equal to 40. So it's going to do exactly the same thing and return to us the exact same information as what we had coded with our between statement. So that's another option that we can use. We can also, if we decide that we want to maybe include some other types of conditions, because maybe we're only interested in the things that are not discontinued, and I can go ahead and say something and discontinued is equal to 0, then this is going to further limit the results that are coming back, and I see more things drop out of my results set. So it's only those where the units are greater than or equal to 20 and less than or equal to 40, and discontinued is equal to 0. I can continue further to filter using, and maybe the units on order are greater than 0. So this is another condition I could add, and it's further going to limit the results that are returned. So I can add additional where statements to further filter the results that I get back. Now, I can also use combinations of ands and ors. We just have to understand that ors have a particular level. They're less than the and if we look at that order of operations. So we have to be a little bit careful when we place our ors in there that it's going to be doing what we expect it to do. In some cases, we have to then go through and use the combinations of ands and ors, but we can include ors within this. So if we go back over to SQL Developer, we can essentially do the same things. We have a products table in our CO user account that basically has a few fields. It doesn't have a lot of fields like we had with the SQL Server table, but it's going to give us enough that we can play around with it. If we look at that base table, execute the query, we can see that we have unit price. And if we wanted to look at our unit price and only select those items that are between $30 and $50, we can go ahead and add a qualifying statement to filter out everything except those items that have a unit price between 30, and 50. So we're going to put in unit price, and we're going to use the between first, 30 and 50. I can go ahead and execute it, and we should see this list filter down, and nothing should be in the list that's less than 30 or greater than 50. We can also use a combination of conditions with our logical operators instead of using the between. Typically, if we have something where we want to do a value with the number between a range like 30 and 50 inclusive, we would use between because that's much simpler than typing a couple lines of code. But what happens if we want to do something where we have the unit price that's greater than or equal to 30, but we want the unit price to be less than 50? So we do not want it to be inclusive. We can't necessarily use a between because we still have things that might be 49, 12, and we want to include those values, but we don't want to include 50 in our results. So this should pick up the $49.12 that we see for line 12. But if we had something that was 50, it would drop out of our results set. So we can go ahead and execute this. Essentially, we should get back the same results because we didn't have anything that cost $50 that was included. But if we had something that was $50, it would be filtered out of the results set for us. We can add additional filters to our statement. And in this case, maybe we want to do something where we're using an OR statement. And I'm going to go ahead and put an AND condition, and I want to look for something where the product name contains trousers or the product name contains jeans. And if I do something like product name like percent trousers or product name like percent jeans, so it should find any records where the product name contains trousers or the product name contains jeans and returns that. So let's execute this and see if it's going to work for what we explicitly want. Now, we have an OR in there. We have an order of operations. Let's check our data. If we look at our second record, we have something that meets the condition of the jeans, but it's not within our range. So it's basically going through and saying, if the unit price is greater than or equal to 30 and it's less than 50 and the product name is trousers, then it's going to include that. Or if something is jeans, then it's going to include that. And that's not exactly what we want. We want to include whether it's trousers or jeans and within that range. So we need to add parentheses in order to make that evaluation work for us. And if we highlight this and execute it, this is going to take down our results set, and we truly are going to get those things that have trousers or jeans in the description, and they are within that price range. If we wanted to continually filter out some additional information because we have the need to do that, we might want to do something where it's just for girls. And I can say where my product name like girl percent should limit it down so that we just see the two results. If that's what I was going for, then adding all those additional filters is going to return less data for my program to process. It's always a good thing to add as many conditions as are feasible to your select statement so that the result set is filtered down and the program doesn't have to deal with as much data.